Bamidbar. Aleph Gimel. So, what page? Oh, page what? 726. Yeah, 726. Okay. So I made a mistake yesterday, by the way. I completely botched up the Chassam Sofer. I looked at it again. What I told you is inaccurate. Let's read Pasuk Beis again. Se'ues rosh kol adas b'nei Yisrael mishpachosam v'beis avosam. Take a head count. B'bispar shemos kol zocher legugulosa. By number of the names of every male, by their skulls, by their heads. So, to the contrary, the Chassam Sofer says, I take back what I said yesterday, the Chassam Sofer says, why does the Torah throw in the word legugulosa? Why? That's a redundant, it would seem to be a redundant word. The Torah says legugulosa is because if there is a two-headed baby or a two-headed person, then you count them twice. Yesterday I told you that you count them once. The Gemara says that there's a two-headed baby, and the Gemara says that for the redemption of the firstborn, which by the way you give money to the Kohen, so then the Kohen gets double whammy on that. A two-headed baby, the Kohen gets two 5 spots, not just one. So I haven't done that yet, but I really don't expect to, or even hope to. Believe it or not, even though there's money on the line here, I certainly hope I don't have to do a two-headed baby. But so the Chassam Sofer says that the extra word legugulosa, what do you need it for? It says already, count every male. Legugulosam, by their heads, if he got a two-headed male. So then, that was the Gemara I showed you yesterday, where he asked Rabbi Nasi, what do you call it, the Gemara in Menachos, where he asked him what happened, and the father comes in, he says he's got a two-headed baby, how to redeem him. Okay. There's a story with Shlomo HaMelech like that, right?
To decide if it's like one or two neshamas.
Right, and I think there's a medrash like that with Shlomo HaMelech where the two heads were arguing that they're really one, or they're really two. I don't remember. Then he said, "Okay, we'll pour." And he poured hot water on one, and only one of them screamed or something. So that showed that they're separate. Something like I don't remember how the medrash goes. Yeah, that was the okay. Then it says, "Be bent." Now, this is very important to get this clear. The modern Hebrew language has been distorted. When they came to live in Israel, there was a man named Ben Yehuda, Eliezer Ben Yehuda, who he's the one who kind of compiled the modern Hebrew as we know it. He himself was a what you'd call from the Haskalah, the anti-religious camp. And what he did was he drew on various words all over Nach. And somehow it just kind of disrespected the entire Jewish life. For example, electricity is called chashmal. Now, when you learn the prophet Ezekiel, Yecheskel, when he gets a vision of God's throne, and he sees the angels, and the Nach describes their appearance as the appearance of Kamare HaChashmal. So what happened was, because if you're modern Hebrew, so now you're thinking the angels obviously stuck their fingers into an electric socket, and and the truth is, what came first, the chicken or the chashmal? The angels, he took it from there. We didn't. Sometimes when you learn the Nach, you say, wow, they had electricity too back in those days. No, so it was somewhat distorted. Now here's another distortion. Mi ben esrim shana v'mala, from 20 years and on, kol yotzei tzava b'Yisrael. Now, how do you translate Yotzei Tzava? Normally, whoever goes out to the tzava. What's the tzava? The army, which is unfortunately, tell me they didn't translate it that. How they translate it? In Israel, whoever goes out to the legion. The Art Scroll did not translate it as army. And it can't be army, and I'll show you why. So he says, Tifkedu otam l'tzivosam atav Aaron. Count them by their numbers, you and Aaron. It can't be army because later on it says by the Levium that the Levium are also Yotzei Tzava, and the Levium did not go to war. The Levium were not in the army. The word Tzava means public service. Anyone who goes into the public service, and over here the Mefarshim say, by the way, that the Torah is implying, we're counting the people who could go into they are of the age to go, who are capable of going into the public service, and that they should go. Somebody who should go into the public service. And gentlemen, one day you're all going to be members of a community. And when you're in a community, you have to realize, sometimes people say, why don't they build a shul? Why don't they build a school? Well, there is no they, you're they. You're part of the community. And, sometimes something needs to be done. You take the initiative and you do it. But the word tzava does not mean army. Nowadays, modern Hebrew, it's used as the army. But it does not what the word means in Lashon HaKodesh. In Lashon HaKodesh, tzava means the public, it means the service, the communal service. So it's just important that what do you call it, that you get that straight. Now, moving right along. That v'itchem yiyu ish lamata. With you shall be a man from each mata, from each tribe. Ish rosh leves avosavhu. That means that the head of each tribe joined Moshe and Aaron in counting the people. There are 12 men who joined, and the Torah is going to tell us who these 12 men are. But what is the name of a tribe? How do you say tribe in Hebrew? Page 726. How do you say tribe in Hebrew? Shevet. What else? Here it calls it a mata. Now, a shevet, you know what the word shevet means? Okay, shevet we call it, a shevet is translated as a tribe. But a shevet really means a staff, usually used in context of, didn't you guys get caned in South Africa? Right? They used to do. Your dad did, right? Then they made it illegal. Yeah. They used to do caning them. And in South Africa, when you misbehave, in America, when you misbehave, so they just took your gun away. But in South Africa, when you misbehave, so they brought you into the room with the principal and the teacher, and they caned you. They took a bamboo. They took a piece of bamboo, and they gave you two, 4, or 6 of the best, as they say. And then they made it illegal because apparently somebody once got hurt. But I think it was the student, not the teacher. And so they made it illegal. A shevet is used as a staff of punishment, but it's a staff of sorts. What's a mateh? Which is called Moshe Rabbeinu had a mateh, right? Which also is staff. Why? Interesting that the tribes are all called the tribe. 2 words to describe the tribes, and both words have to do with a stick. What's the connection? What's the connection, gentlemen? How do you get to a stick from a tribe? Well, where do sticks grow? Do you remember, by the way, there was an international incident. There was a kid, a teenager, who went, I think he was in Thailand? Singapore was with the gum. Yeah, Singapore. And then there was they were going to give him six smacks, the punishment. He's a tourist, an American kid. He put gum on something in Singapore. You don't put gum on anything. Or he was chewing gum or something. And they sentenced him to 6 smacks with a bamboo stick, which apparently really smarts. And there was an international outcry about this, that, the other. Finally, they reduced it to 4. Then he got on a plane. He stood. He probably stood for the flight. Couldn't sit. He got on a plane, and then he took Singapore off his must-visit list. That was the end of his. There was Thailand. There was a guy. This is an incident. Also goes back. There was a Swiss tourist in Thailand. He was in a bar, and he wanted more alcohol. They wouldn't give it to him, so he went out and he spray painted, defaced a sign of the King of Thailand, which is highly illegal, and they put him on trial with a maximum potential punishment of 75 years in prison. And then the judge went easy on him and only gave him 10 years. But the King of Thailand apparently is a friendly chap, so he pardoned him. And this guy also got on a plane and took Thailand off his must-visit list. And I always use that as a Musar lesson, that if that's the punishment for degrading a king of flesh and blood, so imagine the punishment that somebody gets if they insult HaKadosh Baruch Hu, one way or another. So we got to behave. But here, a mateh and a shevet, which are both sticks of some sort, sticks grow on trees. And it's telling you that every tribe is a branch. Every tribe is a branch from the base tree. Which is the tree? Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, who are called the Avos. So there's no coincidence in Lashon HaKodesh. The terminology in Lashon HaKodesh always has a meaning to it. That's what I told you yesterday. Okay, let's go on. In Pasuk Ches, so it says like this. Now, every one of the names, the Torah is going to go through a bunch of names over here. And every one of the names the commentaries talk about, I want to show you one of the names here. On page 726, four lines from the bottom. Li Yisachar, and Yisachar breaks into 2 words, gentlemen. Yesh Sachar. If you look at the word Yesh Sachar, which means there is reward. Now, it says the head of the tribe of Yisachar, Nisanel ben Tzuar. Now, what's in the name? What's in the name? So, who came from the tribe? What were the tribe of Yisachar known for? What did they do? What was their occupation?
Plowing and like making
Nope.
food for everyone?
Nope. The tribe of Yisachar, what did they do? They were the Torah learners. Remember, there's something called a Yisachar and Zevulun relationship, where the tribe of Zevulun supported the tribe of Yisachar so they could learn Torah. So it says the Yisachar, what did they do? Nisan El breaks into two words. Nasan, gave, Kel, God. What did God give? What did God give? He gave the Torah. The Yisachar, what were they involved in? Nasan El. They were involved with what God gave. See, no coincidences, gentlemen. But what does Torah involve? Ben Tzuar. Now, if you take out the Vav, what do you get? If the name Tzuar, just take out the Vav. How does it read? Tsar. What does Tsar mean? Tsar means a little difficulty, a little toil, a little exertion. That means that in order to learn Torah properly, takes a little. It's not easy. Learning Torah is not easy. And I've done several things. I've done several things in my life, including doing time in prison. I've done several things. I was in prison twice. But I was. You don't believe me? I was locked up twice. Once for jaywalking, and once for disturbing the peace. And I was locked up twice in my life. Yeah. The disturbing the peace was really a bum rap. I didn't know the guy was a cop. Just kidding. I would jaywalk, got arrested on 2E Avenue in Chicago. I was with two other guys. We walked to the middle of the street. And we waited for the traffic to clear, and then we ran across the second part, and a Skokie cop, they were notoriously anti-Semitic, the Skokie cop stops us. We were 17 years old, we're wearing our knitted yarmulkes back in the yeshiva. We're ditching class to play tennis. And so we were on our way to a mitzvah, which the Gemara says you never get punished for, but I don't know what happened that day. So we get what he called, he pulls up, he says, okay, all three of you get in the back of the car. What happened? He says he almost caused an accident. He said that the truck slammed on his brakes, which wasn't true. I wouldn't be running in front of a truck. So he said he had to slam on his brakes when he ran across the street. So he said, okay, he's going to give us, we figured he was going to give us a little musar schmooze and then say, go home and behave. And all of a sudden he pulls down his code book. And he goes, I got three males age 16 to 20, violation of a 1794, request backup. I'm like, what? And the next thing you know, a cop car pulls up behind him. He waits for another Skokie cop. They took us down to the Skokie lockup. And, they locked us up. I was behind bars. I was so happy. That's so cool. Except that, of course, Mike's dad wasn't home, and Ricky's dad was out of town, so I had to call my father. Dad, yeah, me and Mike and Ricky were kind of in jail. What? He was in the middle of reading the Wall Street Journal. He wasn't interested. So they came down, posted bond, and we got out. Disturbing the peace was only because the cops, there was a big Jewish gathering on a Motzei Shabbos. There had been some trouble with some of the locals the night the previous Motzei Shabbos. So the next Motzei Shabbos, because the entire Jewish community came out just in case there's more trouble. We're very good when we have the numbers, when there's about 500 of us against 3 of them, we're tough. And so the whole Jewish community, so the cops came and they said, it's an illegal gathering, clear the area. So I was in a car with a few friends and we just drove on California and we drove past to see what's going on. So he said, that's disturbing the peace. So they locked us up again. So here I am, I got a record. So what I started telling you was, you're laughing? Listen, I got on for good behavior. I've been good since then. I meet my parole officer once a month, we're good. So I've done a lot of things. And one of the things that I did is I learned in Kollel for 5 years full-time and 2 years part-time. And I can tell you that of everything I've ever done in life, the most difficult thing is full-time learning. It's the most difficult, challenging thing. You're using your mind. There's not a whole lot of pay. There's very little prestige. You're not getting a lot of outside stroking at all. And you have to go every day, and you're learning, and your whole life is learning. When you're in kollel means you learn when you're in the kollel, then you come home and you eat supper, then you go out and you have a chavrusa at night. You could be learning up to 12 hours a day, 13 hours a day, 14 hours a day, and Friday and Shabbos. When you're not doing something else, you're learning. And it requires mental concentration, and that means when you have if you didn't get a good night's sleep or you have a head cold, it's a very difficult thing, and it involves it's hard. You see these kollel guys, You see these guys who are in coal, everybody thinks they're on easy street over here. Well, I got news for you. Guys who take it seriously, it's anything but easy. It's satisfying, the most satisfying thing in the world. There's nothing like it, and you grow tremendously, and you're focused. But it's very, very, very challenging. Don't let anybody tell you differently. And people think, oh yeah, they're learning kola. No, the guys, they're like any other area of life. They're the guys that take it more seriously, guys that take it less seriously. But if you go to the Mir Yeshiva, where there are about 4,000 or 5,000 kollel guys, so you see a few guys hanging around outside, getting some coffee, whatever it is. Try to find a seat in the base medrash. You can't find a seat. They're packed. There are thousands of people in Lakewood, thousands of people in Bnei Brak, thousands of people who are learning intensely. And when they leave, they go home. I know guys who go home, they have supper 45 minutes, and they're out again for another 4 hours at night. They go to sleep till 12 o'clock at night, 1 o'clock at night. It's a very, very, so it says Nisan el ben Suar. The only thing you got to remember is that there's a statement in Ovos Rabbi Nassan, which is one of the small Masechtas, that says, Tov echad betzar, mimeya shelo betzar. Better one thing that you achieve with discomfort than 100 things that come easy. Which means that if you learn, let's say you wake up, you have a headache, or you're tired, you don't feel like studying Torah, and you learn Torah for an hour when you have a headache, it's as if you learned for 100 hours. Better one thing, b'tzar, mimeya shelo b'tzar, than 100 of thought. If you did a mitzvah that's a hard mitzvah to do, and you did the mitzvah, you helped somebody out, you weren't in the mood, you had something more important that you wanted to do, and you were willing to sacrifice what you wanted to help somebody else, and it was difficult, it was challenging, you get 100 times the reward for that. When it's easy, we're all good when it's easy. Well, when it's easy, listen, when I wake up in the morning and I'm in a good mood, the stock, well, I don't know the stock, but I got paid, I'm freshly paid, it's been a while, I'm freshly paid, the Cubs won, the Sox lost, the Knicks got slaughtered. I'm in a good mood. The world is at the side. Then I learn great. I'm the most pleasant guy in the world. You get up in the morning, Cubs lost, Chas v'sholom, the White Sox won, and I'm in a lousy mood. And you still got to be pleasant, and you still got to be, that's harder. Then it's harder. That's what the Nisano Ben Sur, he's the Torah learner. He's Yisachar, is the tribe that learns Torah, but they got to do it. It's a difficult thing. Remember Rashi? Remember when Yaakov gave the bracha earlier on in Bereshis and Parshas Vayechi when he gives a bracha? So it says Yisachar Chamor Gorem. Yisachar, the tribe of Yisachar, compares him to a donkey. Why? Because a donkey carries a heavy load. The tribe of the Torah learners, they're carrying a heavy load. The people who support Torah are also carrying a heavy load. But at the end of the day, the one who's in the trenches, that's the most challenging. They're carrying. By the way, I just want to tell you, while we're on the topic, there was and I think that this is extremely important for all of us, to encourage us to continue with our Torah learning. Why is Yisachar compared to a donkey? I heard a phenomenal pshat. A friend of mine, Rabbi Avram Rosenthal, told me a phenomenal pshat. You've heard of Rebbe Elyashiv? Rebbe Elyashiv was the Gadol Ador of Chaim Kanievsky's father-in-law. Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky, you've heard of. His father was Rebbe Elyashiv. He was the posek of the generation. Rebbe Elyashiv had a brother-in-law named Reb Lezer Plachinsky. Reb Lezer Plachinsky was with the Mir Yeshiva when they escaped to Shanghai. Massive Talmud Chacham. So he was once walking in old Yerushalayim, and he passed a quarry where they're quarrying out Jerusalem stone. And he looked down into this quarry, and he saw these Arab workers. We're going back probably 100 years. He saw these Arab workers, and they're quarrying out this heavy Jerusalem stone. And one of the workers took the stone, he loaded up a donkey. And Reb Lezer Plachinsky is watching him. He loads up the donkey, and the donkey starts moving, and he stops. Now he's in this quarry. He's got to climb all the way up out of the quarry with this heavy Jerusalem stone to the building site. So he's watching this donkey, and the donkey takes a few steps, and he doesn't move. So the Arab takes a stick, and he smacks him, and the donkey won't move. Smacks him again, he won't move. So the Arab goes over to the side. He takes this big, looks like a blanket. He drapes it over the donkey's head. The donkey puts his head down, and he starts walking. And Rabbi Lezer Plachinsky is watching this, and eventually the donkey walks all the way out of the quarry. So Lezer Plachinsky said, now I understand why Yisachar is compared to a donkey. He said, what happened with the donkey in that quarry? He said, the donkey took a few steps, looked up, he saw where he's got to get to, and he said, no way, I'm not moving. So the Arab hit him, and it didn't help. So what did the Arab do? He put a blanket over his head, and the donkey looked down. That donkey doesn't have a good memory. So the donkey looked down and said, oh, I only got to get from here to here. So he took a step. And he said, I got to get from here to here. And he took another step. And the next thing you know, he was out of the quarry. So Blazer said, those who learn Torah compared to, you know why? How many of you has it happened to? And let's be honest, you're learning Gemara, and at a certain point you kind of do like this, like, oh boy, when am I going to finish that? Never going to get there. So what do? Look down at this page, at this sentence, at this Mishnah, at this pasuk, then turn the page. Oh, okay, now I just have to do this page, then this page, and the next thing you know, you're out of the quarry. And that's a rule, because if you're looking to finish, you're never going to finish. Because we don't finish. Torah doesn't finish. As soon as you finish the Masech, you got to go back and review it. And realize that, hey, I did learn this once before. How come I don't remember anything? Just we're on Makos, on page 3 in Makos. Look back to Bav Beis, and it's like, how much is it already? The answer is that Torah is easily forgotten. And therefore, a person has to know, the attitude has to be, don't worry about finishing. Worry about what you're doing right now. And then when you look back, you'll see that it accumulates, and there's been quite a bit of accomplishment. Okay. Now, take a look at Pasuk Tes Zayin. And it says like this. It's 728, second line from the top. So it says, Eile. Now you notice the next word is a little bit, the next word looks a little distorted, because it's pronounced on the side, Kru'e. These are the ones who have been called, yet it's written, it looks like with a yud. But that yud is actually called a vav ketia. Vav ketia means it's a vav that's been cut off. A vav, when you cut it off, so you end up with a yud, an amputated vav. So it ends up with the yud, second line from the top on 728. So it reads as Eile Kru'e ha'eda, as if there's a vav over there. Yet it's a vav ketia. It's cut off. So when the Torah introduces these heads of the tribes, the Torah says, Eile Kru'e ha'eda nesi'e hamatos, the heads of the tribes, avosam Roshei alfa Yisrael heim. Now why is it a vav that's cut off? So if you turn back, you'll notice, look on 726, 5 lines from the bottom, and it introduces the head of the tribe of Shimon. And it says, L'Shimon Shlumiel ben Suri Shaddai. That's the head of the tribe of Shimon. Now, who was this man Shimon later on? Who does he become? Who is this head of the tribe of Shimon? Later on, who does he become? Zimri, exactly correct. Zimri was the head of the tribe of Shimon, who sinned with the Midianite woman. And what happened to him? Pinchas killed him to death. Yeah, so badly. So he was cut off. And therefore, the Kru'e over here is when we're introducing these tribes. That means there's really somebody's going to be missing over here. I'm telling you there are 12 leaders of the tribes, but there's going to be one of them cut off. Who is the one that's cut off? That's going to be Shlumiel ben Suri, which is Zimri, and therefore you see that the precision of the Torah. Okay, now pasuk Yud Tes. Pasuk Yud Ches, 4 lines to the top. Take it from pasuk Yud Ches. V'es kol ha'eda hikilo, they gathered all the people together be'echad lachodesh hasheni, the first day of the second month, Vayisyaldu al mishpechosam, leveis avosam. They what's the word he uses for Yaldu? They established their genealogy according to their families. B'bispar shemos b'benesrim shana v'mala legugalosa, by the number of their names. Kasher tziva Hashem es Moshe, as Hashem commanded Moshe, vayifkedei b'midbar Sinai, and he counted them in Midbar Sinai. Why does the Torah read? Why does the Torah repeat that Hashem commanded Moshe? We know that. It started out, Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe. Why does the Torah repeat over here that the count was taken as Hashem commanded Moshe? So the answer is, why do you normally count? Why do you normally do a census? There are one of 2 reasons. Why does a king count his army? Because he wants to know the strength. He wants to know the strength of the army. Nowadays, you don't need that many. All you need is missiles. But they count their missiles, unless you're North Korea. And they're always making new missiles. Once in a while, saying things. They just had a big mishap in North Korea. Something happened with the ship. Whether they unleashed this new battleship, and then something broke, and he's not happy. What's his name? The guy with that sharp haircut. What's his name? Kim Jong-un or Kim Jong-un or whatever his name is, and he's not happy. Boy, somebody's head's gonna roll over there. Boy, I would defect to South Korea as fast as possible if I was in the military. I mean, this is a guy who people he doesn't like. He loads them up into missile launchers and shoots them. I know a lot of teenagers would like to try that, but he does it, and without a landing. He's not a happy camper. So in the military, you count your men because you want to know your strength. You want to know how you're going to take on another army. So Moshe Rabbeinu saw maybe that's why he was counting the Jewish people. There's another reason you take a census. Why do you count people? You take a census in order to know economically, what your economics in your country are. Maybe that's the reason that Moshe Rabbeinu was counting them. Therefore, the Torah says it was neither. Moshe counted them for only one reason. Moshe was counting them kasher tziva Hashem es Moshe, as Hashem commanded Moshe. Hashem said, count, I count. He didn't ask any questions. He did as he was told. Rav Chaim Kanievsky, this is documented. Rav Chaim Kanievsky, his father was a stipler. What the stipler said, Rav Chaim Kanievsky did, and he never asked questions. Never asked any questions. What the father said. So Rav Chaim Kanievsky, at one point when he was younger, was offered a position in a yeshiva. And then he went to consult with his father, the stipler. The father says, no positions. Your job is to learn. Rav Chaim Kanievsky never occupied any official position. How do you like that? He never had any position. He was not the community rabbi. He was not the Rebbe in a yeshiva. He was just Rav Chaim Kanievsky. And the stipler said, your job is to sit and learn. And you see that eventually he became the teacher of all of Klal Yisrael as a result. The whole Jewish people needed him. So he had a sister. And a sister came to the house and she said to the stipler, Chaim's back is hurting him. So the stipler walked down he was an older man already, the stipler. He walked down the block, knocked on Reb Chaim's door, and he said, come here, I'm going to help your back. He said, get in bed and lie on your side. Reb Chaim got in bed and lied on his side. The father said, lie on your side. You lie on your side. The stipler took some sort of oil, and for 10 minutes he rubbed it on Reb Chaim's back. And he said, okay, now just stay lying on your back. And the stipler left. Then he came home, and his daughter said, where did you go? She said, I went to Chaim's house, and I put oil on his back. She said, not that Chaim, my son-in-law. She had a son-in-law named Chaim. She said, my son-in-law Chaim's the one with the backache. And the stipler went back to Reb Chaim's house. There's Chaim just lying there on his back. Reb Chaim said, why? Because the stipler said, lie on your back. He didn't say not to. So just lying on his back. There are people who actually respect their parents like that. Have you ever heard of Rabbi Grossman? Rabbi Yitzchak Dovid Grossman, who built the Migdal HaEmek community. At one point, this Rabbi Grossman, he was the disco rabbi. You ever heard of the disco rabbi? Yeah, that's Rabbi Grossman. Rabbi Grossman looks like he stepped right off the cover of Mea Sharim magazine. He is a Chalmer with the beard, the payas, so he went up to Migdal HaEmek, which was a low economic area. He turned the whole place over, working with the hardest characters, mafia guys, and he turned the place over. Okay, at one point, they wanted him to become the chief rabbi of Israel. He was up and he would have won. He would have won easily. And they wanted him because he's he's quietly charismatic. He's a draw. He's a tzaddik, and they wanted him to be the chief rabbi of Israel. His father, who is a big rav, and from Mea Sharim, and the people in Mea Sharim are not that into the Medina, as they say. And his father said, not for you. I don't want you to be the chief rabbi. So he came back, he said, I'm not a candidate. So they said to him, why? He said, because my father told me. So they said to him, yeah, but what was your father's reason? He said, I don't know. They said, well, did you ask him? He goes, no. No, why not? He says, well, we were raised that what your parents say, that's what you do. That line became a major hit in the country. He got a lot of feedback from secular people. Yeah, you know what? Tell this to my kids a little bit. Let my kids hear about this, how you got to do what parents want you to do. And there are people who live like that. So Moshe Rabbeinu is told by Hashem, count the people. He didn't ask why. Hashem said count. Where did we see Moshe Rabbeinu? Why? For economics? Do you want it for the army? Never said why. Hashem said do it. Moshe Rabbeinu did it. Okay, now I want to show you the main point here. Turn to Perek Beis, Pasuk Beis. And here is the main lesson from the Parsha. So, page 732. This is the main lesson. Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe vel Aaron lemor. Ish al diglo, each man according to his flag. Be'osos levesav osam yachanu b'nei Yisrael mineged saviv lo avoid yachanu. The Jewish people are going to be divided up into sections. They're going to be on each side, north, south, east, and west. There are going to be 3 tribes. Each tribe had a flag. Every tribe had a flag. The flag was the colors corresponding to the stone on their chest plate. And this is where flags came from. Why did the Jewish people want flags? Where did they get the idea of flags? So it says that at Har Sinai, HaKadosh Baruch Hu came down with either 220,000 or 2,200,000 malachim. Angels came down at Har Sinai also. That's what the Medrash says. And the malachim were divided into very organized groups, and each group had a flag. And this is where flags come from. You ever wonder where did flags come from? This is the first time we find the concept of flags. And in the Torah, it all comes from the Torah, gentlemen. And the malachim, the Jewish people saw the malachim with flags. And they said, that's what we want. We also want to be divided into groups like it. We want flags. So they were divided into 3, 3, 3, and 3, which happened to be the same way they were divided when Yaakov Avinu gave them his final orders of carrying his body from Mitzrayim. His 12 sons were divided up around the coffin. Yosef was not. He was the king, so he didn't carry the coffin. But Yosef has 2 tribes, Manasseh and Ephraim. They're going to be part of the tribes of the Jewish people. Now, they're divided up into units. Why did the Jewish people want, first of all, what was it about the malachim that intrigued the Jewish people? There was something about seeing the angels that the Jewish people said, we want that. Okay, we're going to answer that in a second. Rav Simcha Wasserman, you've heard of Rebbe Chanan Wasserman, he was martyred at the time of the Holocaust. So the question becomes like this. The Jewish people, the Torah is going to go into a long description of how they're divided up. When did this division take place? The division took place in the 2nd year of the Jewish people coming out of Egypt. Why didn't it happen immediately when they came out of Egypt? Why were they only divided up now in the 2nd year? The Torah begins with the talks about the 2nd year. Anybody got an idea? Why didn't they get divided up right away? Come out of Egypt, let's divide you up in an order. We'll see how we march. No, we wait, they go through the desert, have a little bit of mun, and then in the 2nd year, now it's dividing up time. So the Mefarshim say something took place between the 1st year and the 2nd year, which was what? No, Har Sinai took already place as soon as they came out. They came out once they went to Har Sinai, got the Torah. Then at the end of the 1st year, something took place. Then they're ready now to be divided up. What was it that took place? The building of the Mishkan. The building of the Mishkan. What connection is there between the Mishkan and the dividing up of the Jewish people? So the Mefarshim say like this. If you start dividing up into groups, you run the risk of factionalism. This is our group, and this is your group, and this is your group, and this is our group, and we are table number 1. We're better. Here the Torah says, you know what? First, I need a unifying factor. What's the unifying factor here? The unifying factor is a mizbeach. The Mishkan. That means after we've built the Mishkan, where we could all stay focused in the middle and look at that Mishkan, now we could divide you into groups, because each group has whatever their role is, whatever their task, but we're ultimately all focused on the same goal. And the goal is the Mishkan. And by the way, that's a rule in marriage as well, because in marriage there are separate roles. But when you marry, you're building a Mishkan, you're building a tabernacle, you're making the Kedusha of your home, but they're separate roles. You are the foreign minister, and your wife is the minister of the interior. And by the way, that's a higher rank. Just keep that in mind, right? That you have separate roles, but you have a similar goal. You have a mutual goal. The Jewish people, if you divide them up before there's a Mishkan, that can easily lead to competition, factionalism. That's what they liked about the Malachim. The nature of angels is that angels don't have a Yetzer Hara. The angels don't have an evil inclination. There's no competition among the angels. There's no jealousy among the angels. The Jewish people are looking and say, yes, we like that organization, we want to be divided up, and we really like the fact that it'll lead to, or that we could try to at least emulate the angels and have no competition and no ill will among us. That's what the Jewish people are intrigued by. So Rabbi Simcha Wasserman, who was the son of Rabbi Chanan Wasserman, I mentioned this morning, was a Talmud of the Chafetz Chaim. And Rabbi Chanan Wasserman was martyred in the Holocaust. He was the head of the Baranovich Yeshiva. So Simcha Wasserman was here. He used to teach at Ohr Somayach. He was actually the Rebbe of Rabbi Weinbach, who was Ohr Somayach. He used to come here as an older man, very, very wise, very smart man. And he was once at some sort of rabbinic convention. And a Reform rabbi came up to him, and he said to him, Rabbi Wasserman, why are there so many different types of Jews? They're Misnagdim, and they're Hasidim, and Ashkenazim, and Sfardim, and these and that and the other. And within every group there, these Hasidim and these Sfardim and those Sfardim. Why don't we all become one group? Obviously, meaning why don't we should all be Reformed, right? So he said, why do we need so many different types of groups? So Rabbi Wasserman said to him, listen, in every army, we're Hashem's army. In every army you have different units. You have the Air Force, you have the Marines, you have the Tank Corps, you have the Navy, in every army you have different groups. The Jews are an army. We have different divisions of the army. So the Reform rabbi said, and which division are the Reform? So Rabbi Wasserman, without missing it, he said, well, every army has deserters. The guy started up, go start up with Rabbi Wasserman. You start up, you were asking for it. So the Torah is telling you over here, they're divided up, but we don't want that factionalism. And you should know that nowadays, we have a lot of respect. All groups are different. You have Ashkenazi Jews, you have Sephardi Jews, you have Ashkenazi Jews, you have Hasidic Jews, you have Ashkenazi Jews, you have Yeregi Jews. We're all one as long as you're Ashkenazi. As long as you're a Litvak. Now, every group. The truth of the matter is, how do you picture Mashiach? What's Mashiach going to look like? Is he going to be Ashkenazi? Is he going to be Sephardi? Is he going to be Hasidic? Good question, isn't it? And I'm sure every group, you think, listen, I have a lot of respect for Hasidim, but I'm sure he's going to be wearing a fedora. Yeah. And the Hasidim are thinking, the Litvaks are okay. You get a super strimal ready for the man, And the Sephardim have the chief rabbi's hat ready for him with the gown. Everybody, because at the end of the day, human nature is we're all good, but I'm the goodest. Somewhere deep down inside, you picture. How do you picture Avram Avinu? How do you picture Avram Avinu? Oh, definitely looked like Rav Shach. And the other, no, he looked like Rav Ovadia Yosef. Everybody's got their own, what do you call it? Okay. But we have to remember we are on the same team. Everybody, we're on the same team. And there has to be that mutual respect. It's not my minhag, it's your minhag. My minhag is my minhag, your minhag is your minhag. And you have to keep your minhagim. If you're Sephardi, you have to go with Sephardi minhagim. If you're German descent, if you're Yeki, you have to keep Yeki minhagim. Those are your minhagim. Do you know that the Yekis, they wash before they make Kiddush? Do you know that? There are people, they actually wash, make it until time, then they make Kiddush Friday night. It's an interesting thing. And you're looking at it, you go, no, you got it backwards. No. They wash, they make Kiddush, they're good to go. That's what happens if there are two of you together. Okay, so that's something else. And then when a woman gets married, she takes on her husband's minhagim. Okay, those are all different. But at the end of the day, we're all on the same team. Now, one last point here. The theme of the Rav Aaron Kotler's, he says, what's the theme of the Parsha? And this is really the central theme, and it's a central lesson. The theme of the Parsha is what we call organization. In Hebrew, it translates to Seder. You know that all yeshivas, do you ever wonder why when you go into yeshiva, we have morning Seder, and afternoon Seder, and why is it Seder? There's no matzah, there's no moror. Why are you calling it a Seder? Why is it a Seder? It means order, organization. And what it means is that the day is broken up into a Seder. There's the day should have an order to it. Sometimes you meet people who everything that's happening, they're always coming in 5 minutes late. They're 5 minutes late to davening, 5 minutes late to Seder, 5 minutes late to work, 5 minutes late to everything except lunch. But they're running around, 5 minutes late to the doctor's appointment. They're running around. You almost feel like if they would have just gotten up 5 minutes earlier, their whole day would have been more organized. It's a central value. An essential value is what's called Seder, that a person lives with organization. Rabbi Chaim Moser Grzinski, who was a massive genius, the leader of the Jewish people right before the Second World War, a massive genius. There are witnesses that said he could talk on the phone and write two things and count on a conversation. Just his mind was compartmentalized. He said, to be successful in life, you don't have to be brilliant, you have to be organized. And the Torah is telling you over here how important the Jewish people, everybody's got a role, everybody's got a place. Time, physical, even the way we dress. A person should try to appear Seder. You're be organized. Sometimes you look at the way a person is dressed, it looks like he got blown out of a vacuum cleaner. You know, it just never, you know, just looks like the theoretical possibility of matter without form. And that's not, a person should appear in an organized, respectful way. Look at the military. Look what happens in the military, where you know, when they have a lineup, you know, one button is missing, or one state or something, you get court-martialed for that. And let's you know, it's got to be very, very tight, very precise. So there's a story that I was told. I heard this when I was a kid. This is the Rebbe told us. There was a kid left home and he went to yeshiva. From kid, he left New York. He went to the yeshiva. I think it was in the Cleveland Tells. So after a few weeks, his father decided to come see how he's doing in yeshiva. So the father flew from New York to Cleveland. He spent the day there. He came home. He said to his wife, "Moshe's learning very well in yeshiva." So the wife said, "Wow, really? You spoke to the Rosh Yeshiva?" He goes, "No." "You spoke to his Rebbe?" He goes, "No." "You spoke to the Mashgiach?" "No." "You spoke to him?" He goes, "No." "So how do you know?" So I went to his room. I went up to his room. His bed was neatly made. His shoes were organized under the bed. His room was tight. Everything, his clothes was folded. She said, "What does that have to do with his learning?" He says, "Because if if your room is organized, that means your day is organized, your mind is organized, that you're living life properly. And if you walk into a room and the room looks like war-torn Europe, so your shoes stick to the floor when you're walking through the room, you know, that's a person who's, you know, you're going to have trouble functioning. And ultimately, the lesson is that in our own growth in Torah, where we're trying to progress, trying to take on more mitzvahs, trying to grow as Jews, that has to be done with a Seder also. Not random and haphazard, you know. Now, guy comes in, and a week and a half later, he's already sprouting payas, right? That's not an organized, that's not a balanced approach to Yiddishkeit. The Torah is teaching us it's got to be balanced. All right? Okay, boys.